Do you want to hear a funny joke? Materialism. It doesn't make any sense anymore to be a materialist. Like, to believe that reality is purely physical and there's nothing else immediately runs in the face of your own conscious experience. And it's not that there isn't like a real physical material universe out there, but I'm noticing my light isn't on. See, physical universe. There was a physical object, I moved it, and now there's light. But where is this light actually? Right now, it's hitting your eyes. So the light is where exactly? Is it like in your eyes? Is it behind my wall? Is it in between us? Point, you are conscious experience and meshed with your environment. You cannot separate biological reality and conscious experience. It is not possible to pretend that one is independent of the other. They're both interlinked, because you need to also see the other side of the ground. If you can see that everything is based out of physical matter, and then you have conscious experience, and then you want to conclude that conscious experience comes from the physical matter, you're kind of not going to the other side of the coin, because physical matter clearly comes from conscious experience, or you wouldn't have anything to talk about. And I don't want you to decide, right? Like, I'm not saying, oh, you need to be a materialist or you need to be like a panpsychist and everything is consciousness. But you need to at least accept that both are very valid frameworks, and probably both are true. And if both are true, then materialism is false. If qualia, the sensation of experiencing something, has a quality of its own, then it is not purely materialistic. And I would even say that qualia, like the sensation of how it's like to be something, is still something that you can explain with physical laws. Like, you can probably math all of state spaces of consciousness out. Like, I do think that at the ground of it all, you will find math, or at least you can explain most things with math. Who knows if it's truly the ground of it all, because Gödel's incompleteness theorem points to the fact that even in logic, like, math has to contradict itself in order to validate itself. I want to make a video explaining this more in depth. Point is that no system can explain itself without running into a sort of contradiction. You cannot validate any system without kind of relying on the system itself to validate it. And for a materialist, this is more of a problem than actually for somebody who is a panpsychist or an idealist. Because qualia, like the sense of something, is the same as the identity of the thing. So you don't need to kind of figure out what it is, because the moment your fist hits the pavement, why would you punch the pavement? I could have gone for so many better examples. But the moment somebody else's fists, now we are in plural, when you get punched in the face, all matter stops mattering. Or you might say that now matter is truly important because you need to get your face fixed. I'm all over the place today. When you feel how it is like to be a person in both positive, like valence states, and negative valence states, then the experience of it is beyond material biology. You can always use neurons to explain emotions, and in a way you can kind of explain them away or suppress them this way. But to just say it's just neurons firing in the brain makes zero sense. Because you are, first of all, the neurons in the brain, so this doesn't cause any separation of the actual thing. And clearly the experience is real, independent of those. And this is where people get into fights, because how can you possibly say that the experience is real independent of those neurons? As far as we know, you remove the neurons, so you don't have an experience anymore. Now it's a question of what came first, right? The chicken or the egg. Pretending that the appearance of the awareness or the appearance of the neuron is not both equally mystical and equally, confusing, to say the least, is very intellectually disingenuous. Because why is there a neuron in the first place? Why is there life in the first place? What is the movement that decides for anything to move towards a goal or try to process information or try to create meaning out of seemingly nothing at all? Like, why do we want to survive? You can always explain everything with evolution and survival mechanisms, but why do we want to survive in the first place? Who came up with this idea of survival? And no, I'm not a theist. I'm not religious. Not in that sense. No, for sure not. Like, all religions are man-made. But still, to pretend that the universe isn't observing itself and creating all of this material stuff out of thin air, and now only being aware of this material stuff through consciousness. Like, if we remove all consciousness from this planet, whatever we think reality means is something completely different because it's so dependent on our awareness. So this all means that material physics and consciousness are always intimately interconnected and related. They are one thing. You cannot separate one from the other. You cannot separate the neuron from the conscious awareness. And you might say, well, I would of course not separate the neuron from the awareness. I'm saying that the awareness is there because of the neurons firing in the brain. Then it makes causal sense, right? You have one response and then you have input and then a response. But you don't actually know where has the input started and how does from a ton of material matter come something so seemingly unlocalizable as consciousness or awareness. And if we then go a step further into crazy land, which is actually not crazy at all, it's just the theory of relativity. But if you are honest, then even these classical ideas of cause and effect, like what came first and what comes after, doesn't really make sense and break down in quantum physics. Because if the block universe theory is true, then we are all just one giant space and time that has already been decided. Like, it has started from the beginning and ended at the end, and we are just now moving through the motion of whatever this block universe is. This is, of course, just a theory or a way to conceptualize how a universe would look like if time is actually, or if the universe is completely determined. But even then, right, you have this consciousness emerging out of this system, and you cannot really find its origin point. And if you remove all conscious perception of the universe, then whatever we mean when we say reality is something completely different. This is all fun philosophy for some, but it's also existential for others. Because the sense that you are one with your own environment and your own consciousness and your own awareness is more so than just a philosophical idea, but part of very in-depth spiritual practice. And not just part of a practice, but consequence of the practice, where you dissolve your sense of self with your own environment and then lose the sense of solidity of your sense of identity. And there, from this experience field, the fact that consciousness or awareness is foundational to what reality is shines as extremely obvious. Like, so obvious, in fact, that it seems ridiculous that we never took this seriously, that we hold on so tightly to these very cold materialistic framings because we are so scared in the West that a lot of spiritual or mystical traditions actually had a point. We don't like that we cannot boil everything down to pure raw logic. which again, I'm still in favor of. I'm not good at math, but I see the immense value in understanding things mathematically, and this includes consciousness. The thing is, insofar nobody has even evidence that consciousness is a thing that exists in the first place, which makes it even more complicated, to say the least. So maybe the distinction between conscious and unconscious isn't as obvious. Matter of fact is, reality, by definition, has to be one thing. It has to be reality. It cannot, if you have one part that is reality and one part that is not reality, this distinction makes whatever is not part of reality either not exist at all, or it would be a separate reality and therefore be part of normal reality, and it would be just one. So you cannot separate existence as a phenomena in some ultimate sense. It either is intimately interconnected with everything, or it doesn't exist. You are time and space. You are the light at the back of my wall. You are my voice hitting your eardrums. You are one with everything.